In what a lot of people will believe as a must-win game for the Dallas Mavericks, who on Monday night defeated the Utah Jazz to climb back into their series with a 110-104 win over Utah behind Jalen Brunson's career night. He dropped 41 points, had 8 boards and 5 assists. Still no Luka Doncic for Dallas, but they did get a win. And even though they have lost home court, they go to Utah feeling a lot better about themselves, headed to Salt Lake City, even with the Jazz. Yeah, so I've had the privilege of watching both Game 1 and Game 2 of this series. And look, man, Utah, I'm watching this Jazz team. Something is not right with the body language of this team. And I can only harken back. Y'all hear me? Y'all heard your boy? I harken back to, if you remember correctly, I call it the kickoff of COVID. And I don't mean that disrespectfully to anybody that had COVID before this moment. But if you remember back in 2020, when it was Rudy Gobert rubbing the microphone, saying, COVID, do all that mess with the microphone. And remember the following day or whenever, that same week, I remember that Utah Jazz, I think it was the Oklahoma City Thunder game, ended up getting postponed like 30 minutes, 45 minutes before tip-off, and the NBA season pretty much was canceled right after that. It was a mess. Matter of fact, the whole world was in disarray after that moment, it felt like. I don't think the world's been the same since that moment. And Rudy Gobert kind of became the face of COVID for a couple months. I heard rumblings that at that time, Donovan Mitchell thought it was very childish what Rudy did. And going into that summer, there were reports that Donovan at the time was going to demand a trade out. Now, it didn't happen, but that was the report that Donovan was going to go elsewhere with his talents. Obviously, Mitchell, a phenomenal young talent in the NBA, one of the best, brightest young stars we got. So, okay, we go into the postseason or the bubble, end of 2020. The Jazz get eliminated in a tough series against the Nuggets, round 1. Nothing wrong with that. The Nuggets ended up getting to the Western Conference Finals. That was a tough 7-gamer. It was the bubble, whatever. Last year, Utah, number 1, all regular season. Everybody's like, okay, it's behind them. They're back on the same page. They get to the Western Conference second round, and Donovan Mitchell is limping. He can't stay healthy. The Clippers are limping as well. But it felt like Donovan Mitchell being out, having a Paul George still available was just too much for that Jazz team at the time. They get eliminated. It was really their year last year out the West, by the way. You know, Phoenix had injuries. Lakers had injuries. Utah really was number 1 all year last year in the Western Conference in the regular season. But then the injury bug hit them. So everybody's like, okay, Utah's okay. They're good. They're back to where they were. You know, they're a good team. Then Joe Ingles goes down. Utah let Joe Ingles walk. Try to make a run at this thing this year. Okay, chemistry issues are a thing. I'm looking at the body language on this team. Even when they won, I'm talking about in game 1, a game that they won. It ain't right. Now, I don't know when Dwayne Wade and the rest of that Jazz ownership will pull any type of triggers, because he loves Donovan Mitchell. It'll be tough for D. Wade. Obviously, I don't know the other owners, but we know D. Wade. He loves Mitchell. It's going to be tough for him to say, okay, I'm cool with us trading him, being an owner of the team, part owner of the team. But we're getting close to something. We're getting close to something. If this team loses to Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks after Luka didn't start the series, this will be an awful all-time level L for that Jazz franchise. And as good as they have been over the last 25 years, one of the most consistent franchises we got, with some of the stars that have come through. I'm talking from Karl Malone, John Stockton, Darren Williams, Carlos Boozer, and now we're in the Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert era. Boy, this would be an awful all-time level L for this franchise. You cannot lose to them Dallas Mavericks. No disrespect to Jalen Brunson, Spencer Dinwiddie. They're phenomenal. You cannot lose to Dallas without Luka playing games 1 and game 2. We'll see if he gives it a go game 3, game 4. We'll see when he makes an appearance this series. We do expect him to play in this series. But for Utah's perspective, we'll talk about Dallas in another video. The Jazz got to win this series. If they don't, I just don't know how you can resell that to that fan base. And be clear, Utah has nothing else going on in Salt Lake City. They're going to still sell out that arena every year, even if the Jazz lose the first round. That's not what I'm saying. But will you really believe this team as a serious championship contender? And keep in mind, I'm a Los Angeles Lakers diehard, but I grew up in Memphis. I lived through the Mike Conley era in Memphis. And I'm starting to see it manifest in Utah again. Like, Mike Conley is a good point guard. He's still a really good point guard in this league. But is he great? Like, do you ever feel like you're going places? Like, I'm watching Memphis, right? I got a lot of friends who are diehard Grizzlies fans. Ja Morant gives us that feeling. Like, gives Memphis that feeling. Like, either the Memphis Grizzlies are going to lose really big or they're going to win really big. Not this old play the line type stuff. Like, with Mike Conley, I just feel like you're teetering. You're going to do good, but not great. With Ja Morant, Memphis believes they got a chance at great, even if they fall flat on their face with bad. The chance at great oftentimes is better than just consistently good. The chance at great. And I just think with Mike Conley being your starting point guard, you're just coasting. You're never going to be so bad. You're never going to be so great. We'll see. Rudy Gobert, always in the Defensive Player of the Year conversations. Donovan Mitchell, perennial all-star in the league at this point in his career. They're going to always be top 4, top 5 seed out west. But if they lose to Dallas, this is a step backwards. A team that was number 1 in the Western Conference last year. This would be awful to lose to Luka, less the Spencer Dinwiddie, first-year head coach, Jason Kidd-led Dallas Mavericks.